All right. So, hello everyone who may be watching this video. My name is Michael, and I am uh, playing, or we are playing the game, the role-playing game Kingdom, specifically the Dwarf Mountain scenario. With me here is Robbie and Steven, and we are in the midst of resolving our second crossroad of the session of the series. Just as a reminder, the crossroads is do we, the people of Dwarf Mountain, save the homeland of our current ruler and Revik from the Wormblood King? The Wormblood King being the leader of the kobolds who is enacting vengeance upon, well, basically upon any dwarves he can get his claws on at this point. I am playing the kobold Captain Hax Thrushmouth, who is, I guess, the leader of the kobolds who have settled within Dwarf Mountain at the invitation of the dwarves of the Glimmerhorn, of the aforementioned Dwarf Mountain. Robbie is playing Revik, who is the current ruler of the Glimmerhorn. He actually comes from a far-off homeland and had found himself in exile within the mountain. And it's in fact his old homeland that is now under siege from the forces of the kobolds. We also have Steven, who is playing Gildan Magmathane, who was the former king of Dwarf Mountain before he fell tragically in battle with a great dragon that had plagued and ruled over Dwarf Mountain for a number of decades. The dragon is dead, but Gildan is somehow back in a kind of a, Stephen, what would you describe it as? A fiery undead ghost form?
Yeah, burning skeleton.
Burning skeleton, there it is. So so in this crossroad, we've been trying to decide, we leaders of the community have been trying to decide if we were going to extend our forces ever so precariously thinly to protect the homeland of Revik. We're already a people that have been suffered greatly under the decades-long domination of the dragon, and we also do have some like dark powers of which form is not exactly known yet. Deep within the Dwarf Mountain, and as thinly spread as our people are now, we're trying to determine if we can still go ahead and protect our fellow dwarves who do not have the advantage of the big safe mountain to protect them. We also recently had another character, a conservative elder named Elam Garnet Hart, who was played by a fellow named Richard. He tried to he made a play to stir up some unrest and disorganization within Dwarf Mountain by kind of like raising, I guess you'd call it, stirring up sentiment amongst the dwarves who did not approve of offering refuge to the kobolds of Hax Thrushmouth's tribe, and in the process also to reveal, well, I don't know if he revealed it to us yet, but at least to the players, he revealed himself to be a servant of the dragon, trying to enact a ritual to resurrect it. Whether that ritual was ultimately successful, I guess we're going to figure out tonight. So, for those of you who understand the rules of the Kingdom role-playing game, we have 2 out of 5 progress boxes checked under the crossroads. That means the 3 more scenes we could potentially be resolving this crossroad. There are 2 out of 4 boxes checked under the time passes card. If 2 more boxes get checked, then basically the kingdom finds itself kind of taking a break and just kind of like simmering at a status quo while all I guess we leaders of the community try to figure out exactly what's going on. We also just recently resolved a crisis because we had accumulated 5 checks on the crisis card. We had a bit of some upheaval in rulership. Our former ruler abdicated, that being the stone seer named Bella, who now goes by the name Stoneface. She is played by Louise, who is not going to be joining us, so we'll assume that she's going to remain in her role as the Stoneface. Revik has become the ruler of Dwarf Mountain in her stead, and now she will just find out what she and everyone else is up to. So let's go ahead and start scene 1 with me and my character, Hax Thrushmouth, the kobold captain. I'm opening up my handy dandy how to play a scene in Kingdom guide, just so I remember exactly how to play out a scene. I know this is the 4th session, but still the first game that at least Robbie and I have played. I know Steven's got a little more experience with the game. And let's see. Hax has always been a pretty stalwart ally. Of course, being grateful that we're able to, that we kobolds have of the Freescale Coalition, that being a group of kobolds that rejected the rule of the dragon, and in fact, we were the ones who helped the dwarves of Dwarf Mountain eliminate the dragon threat. So he's always been in support of Revik's plan to protect his, to save his people. So I feel like my first scene with Hax is going to be. I think this is where he's going to be. Maybe it could be a scene where they're actually going to try to plot out how they're going to attack the seat of power of the Wormblood King. He had previously gotten a spy to kind of relay how many forces were still there while the Wormblood King was leading his war. And you know what? Since we haven't gotten a name for Revik's home. Robbie? Do you have any idea? Do you have any particular ideas in mind for what you want to call your homeland? Because I feel like we should have a proper name for it. And you don't even need to come up with like some dwarf sounding name. It could just be even just some like phrase in our common language, just so we have something to call it. I know we had talked about we'd established some fiction that your homeland, at least your family, was known for its vineyards. Does that sound? Am I remembering that correctly, Robbie?
Yeah, I think that there was definitely. My sense is a different kind of geography where there's some agricultural activity, and that my family had been there for a long time, right? I mean, this is like an ancestral farm.
Mm-hmm. Do you envision it being kind of a valley, perhaps?
Yeah, so I think we could go with something like we could go with something like Rockvale.
Rockvale, cool.
Rockvale.
I like that. So we'll say we're planning for siege. And we should probably have a name for for the seat of power for the Wormblood Kings. Let's see. We've established that it's a kind of a badland, canyon-filled landscape. So something there, perhaps something gorge. The does that sound right? Gorge of
Fork Tongue Gorge.
the fork. Thank you, Fork Tongue Gorge. Of course. So I think it would make sense for, and let's locate this, and I think this would be another place. Let's see. I don't. Where do we want to locate this? I don't think it's going to be. I know I said a scene once in the Hall of the Silver Mirror, but I don't. I think it might be too, since it's got a underground river cascading in the vicinity. That might be a little too loud for what we're thinking. Maybe. Oh, you know what? It should be the summit of the Glimmerhorn. Yeah, so we'll be at the summit of the Glimmerhorn. Interestingly enough, it's basically yeah, it's basically like a high peak, like it's like an outcropping high up on Dwarf Mountain, where we, interestingly enough, have enshrined the bones of the dragon as a show to our neighbors that we are no longer under the dragon's rule. And also gives us, it might probably also give us a nice nice vantage point of at least the immediate vicinity. It seems as good a place as any to plan a siege. Will Gildan be watching in secret, or do you think he would want to make an appearance at this planning session?
Probably be making an appearance. I also mentioned that we also have the Orb of Far Seeing up there.
Do we? I didn't know. I forgot about that. Orb of Far Seeing. Well, that sounds like it will come in handy.
Yeah, we it was the dragon's old eye.
No, nice. Well, maybe this is where we find out if that ritual from Elam Garnet Heart had any effect or not. So yeah, so anyway, so we'll be planning our potential strategy. Since this is, I figure we need to figure out what the best way to get there would be. If there'd be one thing Hax had found out from his spy is that they do in fact have quite a lot of forces still within the gorge, and in fact, as a perspective, I had predicted a catastrophic loss of dwarves, and oh wait, we named it Wormblood Canyon. I like Fork Tongue Gorge better. Well, there could be Wormblood. There could be the Fork Tongue Gorge could be like a specific location within the Wormblood Canyon. But in any event, there would be a catastrophic. He predicted a catastrophic loss of dwarves. Whether that actually happens or not, I guess will depend on how these scenes play out. I think the way I'd characterize it would be that they not only do they still have quite a few. They basically, the Wormblood King had not taken devoted all of his forces to his war. That there's still a lot of kobolds left behind to keep his home safe, and it would also be kind of like a laden with traps, so ambushes, booby traps, things like that. So I think I would envision it as kind of like a very lots of rock croppings, kind of terrain that would obscure vision and make it easier to set up ambushes. So Hax, he would turn to you and say, you know, we don't have that many doors as it, you know, we don't have that many doors as it is, and you know, there may still be some I guess I think it remains uncertain whether we'd still even be able to summon our full forces given the unrest the Elm has raised. What do you think would be the best way to overcome this? Right now, as far as what my source had told me, is that this would be a treacherous slog. There'd be a lot of, you know, we wouldn't be able to progress very quickly through the terrain, and it's going to be pretty treacherously full of traps and ambushes.
Yeah, I mean, Revik says, I mean, we're kind of at a crossroads.
Aha! I see what you did.
And well, and I would say what is not tenable is just sitting here and waiting, because
Absolutely not. Mm-hmm.
Right,
sure.
the Wormbloods will simply, if we just sit here, they will have their way with my people, and then no doubt will set their sights on us.
Yes. Now we do have the orb of farseeing. Do we remember? Have we established like how we created the orb of farseeing out of the dragon's old eye? Is that something the dwarves did?
I don't think we ever established how it was made. It was just established that it's a thing, that it's still there, like embedded in the dragon's skull.
Okay. So perhaps we can use this somehow. If we could use the scrying abilities in order to get maybe a better overview of the area. Maybe we could use it to watch out for ambushes, and perhaps parlay its power, or excuse me, use its power to see what our eyes cannot, and be able to pinpoint any hostile forces and or traps. If it's now the question is the orb portable at all? Does, like, for example, if someone tries to move it, do bad things happen? Is it dangerous to move? Or is it possible even for
So, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that, you know, when you're you know, if Hex is mentioning the possibility of using the orb, I think Revik would take some steps over to it to kind of look into it. Revik would say, I was not here when the dragon was here. That happened before my arrival, but I certainly believe that a dragon's eye has power. I don't know that I myself am equipped to be able to leverage that power, though.
Well, if anyone's going to handle it, it should be I would volunteer that, given that we no longer have ever since Stoneface, the disappearance of Stoneface, unfortunately we don't have anyone with anyone with any real mystical ability to speak of. However, the blood of the dragon does flow through my people, even if it is ever so thinly, and I would be willing to take on the challenge of harnessing the eye of I guess I'll call it the great deceiver, since our people as free scalers, we don't worship the dragon as the Wormblood King does, but perhaps we can still use its power to keep us safe. So I think I'm kind of now I'm kind of envisioning a scene where I'm trying to attune myself, or trying to figure out how to use it, so that, and try to determine whether we could I guess not really weaponize it, because we're not using it to attack anyone, but simply to, as like a surveillance, like a magical surveillance system to keep our people safe as we approach.
So, out of curiosity, mechanically, is this representing a change in role for hacks?
In fact, I think this could work well within perspective, because I could simply make a prediction that countermands, or that overrates my original prediction of horribleness. The question is now, does anyone? If of course the big question is, does anyone want to challenge it? And this is where, just out of curiosity, I'm kind of wondering, do you have a sense, Stephen, of how Gildan would feel about this plan? I mean, you've also just like your dot. I know your big drive in the first Crossroad was to get Bella instituted as a leader, and kind of take on your family mandate of rulership. And now that she's rejected that, I'm kind of curious about what that means to Gildan at this point, and how Gildan feels about the Crossroad, whether he supports it or not.
I mean, I have thoughts. I don't have a strong sense of what Gildan would do in this scene in particular, but okay. I can, because remember, this is sort of about your character, and so I don't want to make it about Gildan and what Gildan. That's all I meant. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, that's fine. Yeah. In that case, I think I will go ahead and focus the scene on Hax trying to master the Orb of Farseeing. Does anyone? I think that's. I guess the way it would work, since he doesn't have any magical ability per se, just simply, perhaps try to peer into it, make contact with it, and. I'll go ahead and say, unless anyone wants to say that he does, in fact, manage to. I think this might be interesting. What if? I think he will be able to. I think he will be able to attune himself into using the Orb of Farseeing. It could run the risk, though, of maybe if he's looking to the Dragon's Eye. Maybe the dragon looks back at him, or whatever's left of it. Clearly something is left of its power, since the thing works. And maybe he runs the risk of kind of falling prey to the allure of its power, and kind of turning his back on his free scale upbringing. That we'll just say that there may be some temptation in that regard, but he doesn't give into it now, and whether he gives into it at all, we'll figure out later on as we wrap up the series. But I'm going to go ahead and say that he's going to succeed in attuning himself, so that he'll need to he'll want to take it with him, since he wants to be there for the fight. He doesn't want to just and but he may also ask the dwarf crafters to make a cart or some kind of means of conveyance for the orb. I imagine it's got to be fragile, so it's something that's going to need some pretty stable something pretty stable to be able to move it through, especially through the rocky terrain we're heading for. So I think that's going to be it for his scene. I want to see what other people's reactions are in case there's a challenge to my final prediction of basically saying that that I'll go ahead and just put down the prediction now that the orb of far seeing will prevent a catastrophic loss. So I'm just gonna say catastrophic loss, because if I say catastrophic loss of dwarves, that still leaves the window open for kobolds getting their butts kicked at war. Well, let's see. And I guess now this will be the time for any reaction scenes. And if anyone wants to challenge the prediction I just made, I guess this will be the time to do it.
So I think Revik's reaction, I mean, I imagine that Revik believes that you are able to access some of the powers of this orb, and he actually is going to see a value in this. And I think what Revik does is he orders a couple of the dwarf craftsmen to help you kind of get that orb out of the skull, and also kind of orders them to kind of put something in its place so that somebody looking at it would not necessarily realize that the orb had been taken.
That's smart.
It's like a little forged orb that's in there right now.
All right. Will there be a reaction scene for Gildan?
Yeah, I was just thinking here. Yeah, I guess we have an image of Gildan appearing to you and crying the danger of what you do.
Ooh, okay.
of taking on the power of the dragon into yourself. And allowing it to taint the mountain. And I think that I'm actually trying to overthrow you from.
Ooh, okay.
I am drawing upon the magic of the mountain to course pain through this now implanted eye into your head.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we're going straight for the overthrow.
Yep.
And I'm just
or I forget, is this a brand new character that you just introduced with this scene?
That's correct, since my last character had basically ran off into disgrace deep within the heart of Dwarf Mountain, and I thought it'd be kind of interesting to play Kobold as one of the main decision makers in the game.
Okay, I'm actually forgetting if I guess I can, because I forget what the rules for new characters are in the game.
But he was a character last session.
Okay, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, this was my character for throughout this crossroad. Throughout this crossroad storyline.
Yeah, so I'm overthrowing you with the magic of the mountain.
Okay, magic of the mountain. So you're trying to make a play to be well, you're currently a perspective. I guess the only perspective in this case.
Aren't you also perspective?
I am. Yes.
Yeah, so we're both currently perspective. So it's really a matter of whether you think me drawing on the magic of the mountain is enough, or if you want yes but.
I would say that since you are a ghost and therefore have that's bound to give you a lot of like ghostly ability, and you are the former king, and there is like a lot of still free floating dark energy that was unleashed by your daughter. I'm going to say that all of that would enable you to do what you want to do without any additional any additional what's its, because that's there's a lot of potent power in the air that I feel like you would have access to be able to manipulate that. And this is interesting. So again, you were going to overthrow me from being the perspective, and you were what did you want? What did you say about the orb and embedding it in me or something?
Oh, I
What was
thought that they said they had embedded it into your eye.
Oh, no, I think I was planning. Yeah, I was planning on just like carrying. First of all, it's a dragon eye, so it's probably going to be
Okay.
probably a bigger than my head, I would envision. But
Right.
just I was planning on just like actually taking it into the field and just like using it like a magical surveillance system.
Okay. I guess I'll burn it in your hand. Have it burn in your hands then.
Oh, so I can't even. So basically, I won't even be able to touch it, and therefore not be able to use it. Is that what you're?
Yeah, because I'm trying to overthrow you as perspective.
I got you. Will this hamper my ability to fight? And I'm cool if it does. I'm just it's just something that occurs to me. Is this something like how dangerous will these forces be? I feel like it should be something.
No, but I think perhaps what I instill in you is doubt to your.
I got you. That the doubt that I would want to deal with these dark forces.
Well, like also like doubt in the rightness of your vision, of like your foresight and knowledge.
Oh, I see. So not necessarily doubt in Revik's goals, but doubt in maybe just doubt in my ability in general.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of thinking from the perspective of this is you leaving perspective, so you no longer have that conviction that what you know will happen will be the case.
I got you. Well, I am definitely swerving out of my lane because I've always been a warrior. So sure, that makes sense. So yeah, because of all that, I think you would pull that off, and I think it'd be kind of interesting if I became a. Yeah, I'm kind of curious, but we have a power. We don't have a touchstone yet, so I feel like this kind of move wouldn't. Like, I don't see this kind of this event pushing me into the power role, unless I were to, unless it made sense, unless I wanted to resist Revik's plan somehow. But I don't necessarily see how this event would lead to that kind of outcome. So maybe I'll go ahead and be the touchdown, because maybe I think the way I would I envision this playing out is, Hax was basically relying on his kobold heritage. Since he doesn't have any mystic training, he was just relying purely on his kobold heritage to be able to work with the orb, and perhaps the shock of this event has somehow attuned him more towards maybe this brief contact with the dragon's power has taught him some I don't know. It's somehow like attuned him more towards like the heart of his people, the kobolds, and well, I guess it would be the kobolds and the dwarves, since now that those are in fact the people of Dwarf Mountain. So I'll go ahead and take the touchstone roll, and we still do not have, and I'll also take off that prediction, right? Because I was never.
No, it stays there, and whoever's still in perspective when the time comes, you just cross off your name.
Okay.
If whoever's there when the time comes, if you become perspective again, or if you're not there, then if I'm there, I can always say like, yes, that comes true. Like anyone who's currently perspective can adopt them when the crossroad is resolving.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's an interesting scene. I guess that's. Finally, I get to check some stuff off. So. I feel like we haven't really. I feel like we haven't check the. I don't think we've really made progress per se towards our goal since I was not able to master the orb. But this also doesn't feel like a crisis. I think this is more of a time passes thing. So I'll go ahead and check that off, and that will be my turn. Is there? Oh wait, I'm touchstone now, right? So do I use the touchstone rules of getting to check that extra box?
Yeah, it says you advance a card after reactions, so you're a touchstone now.
Okay. So basically I first get to either add or subtract a crisis box, and then I get my check. Am I remembering that correctly?
I don't. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Does this forebode some crisis? I'm gonna say yes, because trying to access the power of a dragon is bound to be at least a little destabilizing. So I've checked the time passes box and a crisis box, and now that is my turn.
Sorry, it occurs to me that this was kind of an example of improvising, of saying no, perhaps. So I apologize for that.
Oh, that's no problem. I feel like it moved my story in an interesting direction. So I don't feel like I guess no would be annoying only if it was simply no, and there was nothing left for my character to do, or there's nothing that resulted for my character from that scene. But I think there's definitely a change in the status quo, and it can make things interesting. Plus, we need more conflict in this game, because if all three of us are going to be on board, I feel like Kingdom, especially Kingdom, is a game that doesn't function well if everyone's like kind of on board with the same mission, and everything goes smoothly. So yeah, I'm cool with how that played out. But I appreciate your concern for that. And I guess we can go on with scene 2 and Robbie. We're still in a situation where we don't really have a good strategy to avoid a bloodbath in the Fork-Ton Gorge. And what does Riffic want to do about that?
Now, would Revik have been aware that, with hexes trying to access something with the orb, that something has occurred that maybe that has put some doubt in Hex's mind? Does Revik know about that?
I think, given the fact that we are still allies, if I don't tell you directly in the passage of time between my turn and your current turn, you'd have people who could let you know about that. I'm inclined to say that if you want to know about it, you'd know about it.
Yeah,
because I wouldn't necessarily be trying to keep that a secret. Certainly not from Revik, at least.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is that maybe Revik is kind of deciding that some type of he's kind of made up that we need to make some type of foray to Wormblood Canyon, at the very least, as a kind of reconnaissance probe or something like that to Wormblood Canyon, to really get a good assessment of what that situation is. But I think before going, Revik is worried about the kind of underground. We have the Black Gate, which we always leave guarded, and I think we've had to pull away.
Oh, I think the Black Gate is currently unguarded because we had, if you recall, I think that might have actually happened in the first.
Yeah, somebody
crossroad.
decided to take all the guards off of it.
Yes. So maybe we have a scene down by the Black Gate, like before we leave, to kind of just Rebek is down there with Hex. We're about, we are shortly going to be setting out on with a kind of an elite group to go off to the Wormblood Canyon, but we're going to do an assessment of what the situation around the Black Gate looks like. I mean, is there, right? I mean, I see myself down there, kind of looking down and kind of pondering, and this seems to me like it almost seems like we have so many fronts on this engagement. We've got Wormblood Canyon that we're thinking about. My own people are under assault.
Mm-hmm.
We are just going to be sitting ducks if we let the Wormbloods have their way, and then we have this big unknown mystery that is under our feet. Hex, are you able to pick up any
Well, hang on. First off, who's actually there? Because we haven't.
I think Hex is going to be there, and I'm going to be there, obviously. And I'm happy for the fiery skeleton to be there. If in terms of in terms of Gildan, I'm happy to have Gildan there as well. I mean, and I don't know that you would be invited necessarily, but you would probably have an awareness when people go down there, I would assume.
Okay.
So are you basically just want to find out if just want to answer about whether it's safe to send forces away?
Yeah,
or at least,
I think I'm taking you down there to say we've got to at least have a sense of whether something really dangerous has awakened and is can we afford to kind of leave, and is there any kind of force that seems to be coming up from the depths that we need to be worried about? We haven't had the guards here for some time.
Yeah. Well, this was one of the dangling plot threads from the first Crestwood, so I guess this is as good a time as any to figure that out. So let's think back to what happened at that resolution of the first crossroad. The Stone Seer had basically evoked her like overt magical power, which is something that I believe Louis had entered into the fiction, that is something that dwarves are not supposed to do. Perhaps let's see, what would be a good reason? I feel like maybe a good reason for why dwarves and magic don't typically work well together is maybe how do you feel about this? Maybe there's some kind of like like in creation times. I always like to play up the trope of the dwarves as like the creators, and in fact, I always like the old like Norse myths where it was the dwarves who, I think this was the case. I can't remember if it was actually the case where it was the dwarves who actually like carved out all the geographical features out of the body of Ymir, Ymir the giant. But I kind of like the idea that since they got the privilege of being able to, since our dwarven forebears are cosmic ancestors, let's imagine, since they got the privilege of crafting the very geographical features out of the stuff of creation. That as part of that bargain, they gave up the ability to wield magic, and anytime they do wield magic, they're never. It always goes badly. But the Stone Seer did that anyway, in evoking the curse, the Stonebeard curse, upon both my character Fermuli and that other dwarf, that other kobold racist dwarf, Loud Hammerdigger. How could I forget? So she had, I imagine she had drawn forth power from the mountain as well, just like Gildan just kind of did, drawing power from the mountain. And let's say that when we get to the gates, the empty gates, it's a very spooky environment. What could we see that indicates that something is awakened within land? The land itself, perhaps the stone structures have seemingly reformed themselves, like some of the statues, like maybe what once looked like statues of stoic, powerful dwarves now have kind of like changed shape, so that they now look like tormented dwarves instead of like powerful armored figures. Perhaps that's something we might see. And does that make sense as a sign that there's definitely something amiss here? Maybe we should just back up and try to figure out what we think as players, what we think the awakened forces would be. Are we talking about like earth elemental forces, or maybe something demonic, like something Balrogi? What do we three feel like defining as being the awakened forces of deep within Dwarf Mountain? Is it something related to the dragon, perhaps? Oh, and also we also have that that ritual that Elam Gildan whatever enacted.
Yeah.
So there's bound to be at least some like dragon resurrection power going on. Like maybe the energy of the mountain is, maybe it's something where the dark energies of the mountain, whatever magic is deep within Dwarf Mountain, it's maybe rising to the surface and heading towards the skeleton. Could it be something like that, perhaps, that we might see?
Yeah, I think, or I'm also wondering, if it was related to the dragon, if they're, I mean, we haven't established like how dragons reproduce, but
Nope.
I mean, maybe there's a possibility that we're sensing that I mean, maybe there are some type of signs of that some signs down there that some interpret as being kind of potentially like some type of dragon activity, some type of traces or marks, or perhaps a smell that's kind of coming out of there that has us unnerved that there's some type of dragon force that's rising up, or perhaps kind of collecting itself down there.
So you mean like okay, so are you thinking of like an entirely separate dragon as opposed to a resurrection of the dragon we dealt with?
I think we could probably leave that a little unknown. I think that's probably a debate that we're having. I mean, we see these signs. I think some of the dwarfs are kind of convinced that that's always been worried that there might be some type of resurrection, and others are like thinking, okay, definitely some type of worm presence is down there, but thinking that maybe it's some spawn of the dragon or something else that's kind of arising up there, but somehow related to the dragon that was defeated long ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mean the by the dragon that was defeated long ago? You're talking about our dragon, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's say that then. That we see that there's power. There's some kind of draconic power being flowing through the rocks itself, and I think that's something that Hex would definitely be attuned to, even though he's not a dragon worshiper. He's going to be at least a little attuned to that because that's still part of his heritage, even if he's turned his back on it. And that disturbs him greatly. That really disturbs him greatly, and that actually, and also inevitably would disturb our people greatly. Yeah, like our people. Yeah, certainly the free scalers would freak out at the prospect of dragon being resurrected, because we're certain this was going to be our kind of like our refuge, of where we could practice our way of life, not serving dragons. And by the way, this mountain's full of draconic energy. So. Does that like kind of fulfill Ravik's goal for the scene of at least knowing that this is a front that you can't just ignore? Does that sound?
Yeah, I think that certainly adds yet another interesting complication to the whole plan of what we're going to be what is the best course of action now.
And
having this confirmed that we have this other front underneath us to deal with.
Yeah, and it also ties up, ties in all the stuff that happened in the first crossroad, which is cool. Do you have like any kind of like exercise of power in mind that we would want to play out in this scene?
I think, how does this sound? I mean, realizing that the kobolds are more draconically inclined.
Mm-hmm.
I turn to Hex and say, I need you to select a small force, and your people need to kind of keep an eye on this. You would probably be more equipped. The kobolds would probably be more equipped to kind of figure out what exactly is going on down here.
Yeah, in fact, I think I feel like as the touchstone, I can say that my people would take this upon as like, this is kind of a galvanizing thing. Like it's almost like this is why we were created, sort of thing. This is truly their mission. By the way, I forgot to give up something when I changed roles, because when you change a role, you always have to give something up. I'm going to go ahead and say that damage to when I tried to grab the orb and the power of the mountain struck out at me, I'm going to say that actually did permanently damage myself, where I can't fight anymore. The hands aren't burned off, but they're certainly weakened to the point where he can no longer be a reliable fighter, at least not a melee fighter. So anyway, that's something that just occurred to me. So yeah, so not that you can command, you can't command another player to do something, but I think that's something that Hax would still definitely be on board with, because they're in fact.
To clarify, when the defender changes a role during an overthrow, they don't pay a price.
Oh. Because
you're changing it against your will.
I see. Whoops, never mind. Well, okay, we'll just leave that as is then. Okay, thank you. What was I saying? Oh, yes. So as far as, I guess my reaction scene would be that the kobolds are going to settle at the gate and just kind of like take the gate over, and also start preparing, to maybe start trying to figure out what they can do to prevent the passage of energy into the dragon skeleton. So that would be my reaction scene. And I guess as a touchdown, all I do is define. I basically just define the people's feelings, right? The people's will, which I think I just did for the kobolds. So yeah, I guess I could also. Would I also be able to say then that the dwarves would be okay with the kobolds doing that? That they're okay with.
Yeah, you're the
trusting
touchstone.
Yeah, I'm the touchstone for everyone, right? So, yeah, I think I think that's definitely what the situation is. But it also means that the kobolds are not going to be available for the venture into the gorge. That would be I think they'll definitely won't want to deal with that, because this would take priority in the minds of the kobolds. So that's going to be my reaction scene. Is there a Gildan reaction scene?
No, I'm good.
Take on the Black Gate. If you don't have any other, I guess, are there any other role actions or anything else? I guess it's time for you to, Robbie, to check off a box. Did you just check off a crossword? It looks like you just checked off a crossword box. Is that correct?
Yeah. No, I'm going with the crossroad. I feel like things are definitely coming to a head for at least Revik is thinking, okay, I've really got to make a decisive decision here very soon.
Cool.
What we're going to be doing. We have enemies everywhere now.
Yeah, really. Inside and outside.
Yes.
I believe that takes us to Stephen and Gildan Magmathane.
Sure, and I'll frame a scene in which the angry Gildan Magmathane appears to the Dwarven Council to chastise them on their inaction. And I'm there. I'm just drawing people's names. Yeah, Revik's there.
I wouldn't see Hex being there if that's what you're about to consider.
Oh, I wasn't gonna say Hex. I was gonna bring up if there is, because I mean I don't know if like the Hammerdiggers are still around just with stone beards now.
Oh, the only person who got the Stonebeard curse would have been Loud. So
I thought she also gave it to all the Hammerdiggers as well. But okay.
Oh, we could say that. I mean, that would make more sense.
I'm pretty certain she did.
Oh, sweet. I actually like that better, especially if this is the kind of magic that destabilizes a massive mountain. It'll make sense that it could affect an entire clan.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you wanted to play Loud in this scene.
Oh, that'll be interesting. Sure. Yeah, he didn't. I don't think Loud would have. I'm pretty sure Vermuli was the only one who ran into the darkness. And I guess since he is still the head of the clan, yeah. Well, I guess you envision that he still gets to attend the. Well, I guess if I remember correctly, the Dwarven Council, like other people were allowed to attend, right?
Yeah.
Because there have been audiences. It was kind of like
yeah.
Yeah. So Yeah, he'd probably have like the seat of least honor amongst the elders, and yeah, he'd just be hunched over, and he'd barely be able to speak. Like I envision every word would just be painful because he's got this massive weight hanging from his jaw. But yeah, I can go ahead and play that.
Yeah, there's a kind of crashing boom of thunder through the hall as an armored flaming skeleton, whose beard is a kind of mass of flames flowing out from the skull and flickering away. Talk. I hear nothing but talk from all you poor excuses for dwarfdom. Are we armadillo men who simply hide in their shells? Because, like the armadillo men that live in the next mountain over.
I love that there are armadillo men in this game. Yeah, they just curl up in balls, and that's how they. Yeah.
Do we sit around at our tables endlessly discussing strategy, without action, without fighting? Do we cower from those who would mean dwarf kind ill? And I kind of look at you, Revik, and as I kind of enunciate that cower.
Yeah, I mean, Revik, when you kind of, especially when you direct your gaze at Revik stands up and says, exactly what? First of all, I do not see us cowering. Also, I do not know what you would advise. Do you just mean to kind of have us lash out in every single direction simultaneously? We've got enemies at my homeland. We've got the Wormbloods back at their canyon, and now signs that some type of draconic activity is bubbling up from underneath us. And Gildan, I don't see you doing very much yourself, except for blustering here and spouting a bunch of fiery words.
The ghost kind of moves at you with a uncanny speed and grips you by the throat. That it's just on the not side of burning, almost there. But it's and I say, I remember a time when our enemies cowered at the might of the dwarves. But you're just a boy, practically little more than a babe. I'm surprised you're not still suckling at your mother's breast. You're so young.
Oh.
But I'm sure you're like 50, but that's still for dwarves. That's nothing.
Yeah. I think Revik lets you have your say, but then I think steps back and says, Gildan, trust me, we will take decisive action, but fiery blusteriness without clear focus, without clear intention, that doesn't get us anywhere.
You forget that it is not you who sits in the throne. It is my blood that has claimed the throne. And then I kind of step over to the throne and place my hand on it. It is I who have claimed the throne. Yeah, and I am changing to power. And there's a kind of tremor that runs through the mountain.
Oh, okay.
I think what Revik says at this point is, your time was in the past. I don't really see dwarves serving a dead king.
And as I say this, and you can feel a tremor of power pass through the chamber, who better to serve a dead king than the dead? And you remember we have
What?
that chamber that's filled with the spirits of the dwarves. But the room
Yeah.
that there's a kind of marching in is the boots of skeletal dwarf kind. And I am giving up my hope of an afterlife in changing to power. But I am burning away my soul to fuel this magic. And they kind of surround you, Revik, and I say, so what say you, Revik? Do you still wish to lead from here, or do you wish to lead from the front line as we are going to war? And I'm on an overthrow spree now. I am going to try to overthrow
Sure.
you.
Okay, so with the overthrow, then Revik, I'm going back to the. So Revik's options here are. He can what? Challenge the overthrow?
I think you can either accept it or you can add stipulations. I believe
you can't full on stop an overthrow, right, unlike a challenge, because a challenge is sort of like only going halfway, that you're not actually like pushing the person out of their role. You're just trying to challenge one thing that they decided or did. An overthrow, you can either accept it or you can say, I need to go further to overthrow you.
I kind of like this. I mean, as a player, I like this overthrow.
I have a. Oh, okay.
I mean, you can suggest things like you don't have to leave it like everything in their head. Like if you have an idea.
Yeah, something that occurs to me, and I don't know how much say I get to have since I'm not involved in this overthrow, but just as a reminder, I was looking, the reason that the Dwarf King is still like existent at all is because you wrote that that his bones were bound to the mountain by the dragon's fell fire. So in a way, it sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like Gildan's very existence hinges on the power of the dragon, the power of that dragon's breath that has tied you to this mountain, and instead of going to the afterlife and given you the ability to basically shed your afterlife in order to bring forth the ghosts of the unburied. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, like basically I'm saying is that like, so when you could you repeat just the last part of that question?
Oh, I mean, it is the dragon's fell fire that keeps you rooted to this plane of existence. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically, I'm kind of saying is that, like, I'm basically going to burn myself out, and then I'll just be gone entirely. No afterlife, nothing.
I see. Yeah.
Because I mean, this is the last session anyway.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Basically, I'm burning through whatever constitutes life force in this world to fuel the magic.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, I don't know, Robbie. Robbie, I don't even know if you're looking for suggestions or if you wanted to.
Well, I do wonder. Yeah, I mean, I was wondering if maybe the condition here is that to do this, Gildan actually is having to make some type of pact with the spirit of the dragon. that in order to kind of gain this kind of power and force, that you're having to kind of channel something that's kind of coming from that dragon.
Yeah, like perhaps the power you're drawing is from the surge that's coming from deep within Dwarf Mountain, and I don't know, maybe it's not, even if it's not an overt pact, maybe just the fact that you're drawing that, you're almost like anchoring that power so that it can go into you, so that you can achieve everything you want. And presumably, I would only guess that you need at least some more power to at least be able to leave Dwarf Mountain if you wanted to lead another war. But what if that?
I mean, in a kind of very like Dark Soulsy way, is it something like maybe I infect the souls of like dwarf kind with the blood of the dragon?
That's
I don't
possible.
know. I'm just trying.
Oh, sure.
I'm just thinking through random stuff.
Sure. I was thinking more that if you're drawing in that power, like enough of it could wash over. It will go through you, but it'll kind of like also be drawn to the dragon skeleton to the point where we risk resurrecting it, just because you're serving as an anchor for that.
Sure, let's just say resurrect it, because we need to actually like not just have stuff threatened happen.
Yeah. So, Robbie, do you think that sounds like a good proposition to add?
Yeah.
That you can have all the power you want and like be able to move around, but
I'd prefer it to resurrect as a skeleton dragon, though.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to want to know where its eye is.
Yeah, how about that? But yeah, I think that sounds pretty sweet. Well, Robbie, it's Steven's scene, so
yeah, I think that the spirit of Gildan takes the throne, and they seem to almost grow to fit its size. And I think if you want to like have any like, what's our closing image of actually also what role are you changing to, Robbie, if you're accepting, if this overthrow is going through here?
I think I'll go to, I think it makes sense to be perspective. Yeah, I think perspective might make some sense. That I've this is what the second time I've been. Is that the second time I've been power? And right, so I've seen a lot of like things from different angles here. So, yeah.
I can't remember if you started out. Did you start out as power? Or did you start out as perspective?
I think I may have started out as power. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you're perspective at one point before.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
But I think that's good for me for the scene.
Yeah, that's a production scene. Do we? I guess it's time for reaction scenes. Do you have a reaction scene, Robbie?
Okay, and this would be as perspective then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, I imagine you'd want to at least like give some explanation of like how Revik actually like re-enters perspective mode.
Well, yeah, I mean, because Revik had just been kind of contemplating the, what was coming from underneath Dwarf Mountain, and I think probably picks up that there's some type of that power that's coming, somehow getting channeled through Gildan in a way that I don't quite understand. And I think that kind of realizing this, and also realizing the great power that he has, as the dead come kind of marching in. I think Revik kind of takes some steps back and is I think really ambivalent at this point. I mean, I think he kind of realizes, okay, well, we were in pretty disparate situation, but this seems like a pretty forceful power that Gildan is commanding. But I'm also wondering at what cost, right? Because I recognize that that power coursing through him as being kind of welling up from that force underneath the mountain.
Mm-hmm. Cool. As for Hex, I guess. I guess I'd like to say that as a touchstone, I don't supposed to focus on Hex, but since Hex isn't there, I still get to. I mean, I still get to.
Well, it doesn't have to be set in the actual like immediate like area of the scene. Like you can show some like vignette that like shows like the fallout of this. Like there's a lot of fallout to deal with.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a skeleton dragon flying around, an army of the dead that now controls the mountain.
Right. Well, I envision all throughout the scene that the people, as soon as I see that Gildan's still here, like I think that really galvanizes everyone into like, basically everyone's ready to follow you again. They're just they're elated that you're back and that you haven't abandoned them. And as for the kobolds, well, hey boy, I got a cat. So, I mean, given that, given that the dragons awaken and that Gildan seems to have like had some kind of role in drawing forth basically all the all the stuff they had been doing to try to like stop. They're probably like doing all kinds of like I don't know if they're like reshaping the mountain or doing some kind of like kobold feng shui thing to like prevent the flow of energy from going up, and then all of a sudden it's like it's like a deluge called upon by Gildan. I think basically Hex is kind of like swearing that that the Gildan must pay and for what he's done, and I think that's simply so. The kobolds are definitely not very happy at all with Gildan, and I think that's where his scene, where my reaction ends up. And now it's time for box checking.
Yeah, I took care of that.
Oh, cool. What'd you check
I
here?
checked off Crossroads.
Yes. Okay. Oh, and it's back to me. For scene 4. Do we feel good about continuing, or do we care for a bio break?
I mean, we're probably only going to have another scene or two, so I'm fine with continuing. But if people need the bio break, I'm fine taking one.
Like a short one, like maybe just a
Okay.
5-minute break.
Sure.
Okay.
5 minutes. Cool. We'll see you in 5 minutes. All right, let's get back into this. So next scene is me, and we've got Hax. Let's see, are we saving Revik's homeland from the Wormblood King? I think Hax is now on the no side of that because there's new fish to fry. Sad to say for Revik's homeland. So let's see. What's Hax going to do? We've got a resurrected dragon skeleton. We've got a dwarf. We've got a fiery ghost dwarf, a dwarf king ghost running around getting ready to declare all-out war. I think what they need to do is figure out how to diffuse the energy, and of course, unfortunately, the kobolds don't really know how to do that. They don't really have any. I don't think we haven't as of yet established them having any big sorcerers or mystics amongst their number. I kind of envisioned that the Wormblood King would be more likely to have the sorcerers amongst the kobolds, since they were more embracing of the dragon, and they'd be more likely to embrace the dragon's power, whereas the Freescale Coalition, they would probably be averse to studying magic anyway, since they would associate magic with dragons, and that's not what they're about at all. So unfortunately, they're in a situation where they don't really have the knowledge to do what they know they need to do. But let's see. They probably do know mining. Is there any? I think they might need to. See, as the touchstone, I think their best bet might be to try to convince people, or the dwarves, that their leader is corrupted. Perhaps if they how could they go about doing that?
Well, as a reminder, you don't need to frame a scene as your role. You just kind of want to frame a scene that's about your character relating to the crisis in some way.
Right. Okay. So
it could just be maybe there's something like not just that your character is going out and doing, but something that they're witnessing or that is happening, or something that forces your character to think about, to deal with the crossroad in some way.
Okay. Well, okay. Thanks for focusing me on that in that way. I think what will happen is that I think that this big surge of power is bound to have bad effects on the mountain itself. And well, actually, no, not necessarily. I take that back. I'm actually, I think with the way they would react to the emergence of Gildan is, I think they're going to. What they'll do is, since no one has yet realized that the dragon is missing, I think that once they felt that surge of power, I think the naturally what they would do is like head up to the summit to see presumably to find a missing dragon skeleton. So I think the scene is definitely them finding out that the dragon is missing, confirming that, and I think they're going to let everyone know about that. They're definitely going to they're going to spread the word that the dragon is gone. You know what? Who did we? I don't think we would have hung on to the orb as soon as the orb rejected Hax's attempt to harness it. I think it probably would have stayed there. So yeah, he's just gonna. I think Hex and everyone else is just gonna alert everyone that the skeleton of the Great Worm and the orb of Farseeing are both gone. And he'll draw that, certainly draw that to. He'll come looking for Revik, realize that Revik's not in charge anymore, and that Gildan is gathering his forces. So I think this is like a scene. Let's place it. Let's find a good location where we would all be. I don't know. Maybe I guess the throne of the mountain rulers. I guess. Would you be on the? Would Gildan most likely be in the throne room, or would he be preparing?
I'd probably be there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's where Hex will head and basically proclaim to everyone that. Well, first of all, he'll be once he gets over the shock of seeing Gildan on the throne again, and making his appearance known to his existence known to everyone, that the Great Worm has reawakened. The skeleton is gone, as is the orb of Farseeing. So no doubt the dragon has reclaimed his eye as well, and and would basically try to convince the people that it was your exertion of energy that also reawakened that also brought the dragon back to life, and that in your quest to prolong your unnatural life, that you've brought back the creature that had enslaved you for so long. And he's not going to really necessarily command you have to step down, but he's just more trying to just let the people know. And I'm sure they'll talk about the magic, and maybe talk about all the weird vibrations that have been.
Well, okay. I mean, how about role play out the scene then, because it feels like you're just narrating what you're going to say here.
Oh yeah, well yeah, I do like to. Yeah, I do have a tendency to stick to narrator mode. So no that we've all noticed the strange the strange quakings and vibrations that have been going throughout the mountain, and we've been studying that from the Black Gate, which we have taken on as our duty to watch out for threats, and we found it, and it leads right here. He beckons everyone to follow me up to the summit. We shall show you that the skeleton, that the bones of the Great Worm have gone, as has the orb of Farseeing, which is no longer available, no longer ours to avail of. He basically just says, "Come now, follow me," and just tries to rally the people of Dwarf,
I kind of proclaim a crackling halt.
Mm-hmm.
The bones are gone. I will give you that. Have you apparently seen this supposed dragon that has come alive again?
If the dragon had seen us, none of us would be here now.
Exactly. We are not attacked. We are not under assault by the dragon. Yet you expect us to believe that the dragon is alive again? Now, we already know that there were those among us.
Go ahead, sorry.
There were those among us who had betrayed us to the dragon. How do we not know that this information, that the dragon is alive, is not simply another ruse of theirs? I guarantee you that if what you say, I will investigate the hold for who is responsible for the bones' disappearance, and they will pay. But we will not treat this as anything other than a distraction from where our real enemies are, Hax.
Well, I say that the first investigation should be why you are still here after being slain by the dragon. And look, your very form radiates the fire of the dragon itself. How could you, or how else do you explain your remaining on this plane after your very own people saw you die, incinerated? What dwarf has ever been known
to me
handle
of dabbling in draconic magic, Hacks? Or was what I witnessed you attempting to do with the orb my imagination?
That is not an answer, an explanation for why you are still here. There's nothing. I believe there's nothing in your dwarven lore or religion that allows for resurrection. Certainly not of a fiery kind. How do you explain it? Why? How are you even here? You must ask these questions.
I do not owe outsiders to the mountain explanations, Hacks. And I kind of gesture at my guards. I will decree that there will be an investigation, and until such a point, only those dwarves I trust shall be allowed into the throne room. And I am proclaiming that kobolds are not going to be allowed into the throne room.
Okay. At this point, I mean, as the touchstone, is this the point where I say that the people aren't crazy about that ruling?
Yeah, no, that's fair. You can just say that. That's the case.
As the kobolds have proven themselves multiple times at this point that they've been trustworthy. They've been here for a while. They haven't despelled anything or wrecked anything. And they do have a good point about like how is it that you still have not explained you still haven't explained away your apparent connection to the dragon's fiery breath that seems to be surrounding your form.
Yeah, and I think probably the guard you're probably shouting about this as the guards like scuffle with you as they escort you out the room.
Sure. Barring anything else, I think that's really all I had in mind for this scene. I guess it's time for reactions.
Sure. Do you want to take it, Robbie? I'm thinking myself.
It gets a little challenging because we have the crossroad is, do we save Revik's homeland? And now, we're kind of thinking about, we've got this other issue of the dragon that's kind of hanging over this now.
And as a reminder, if we don't actually address, we have to address the issue of saving Revik's homeland. Because if we don't, then it's just going to be marking off crisis boxes.
Right.
You don't have to have a reaction. You can always pass.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
So, Stephen, I have a question about how I play out the touchstone. Basically, I just define the will of the people however I choose. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the kind of main reason you want to kind of make it clear what the people want to other players is because it's basically you hold that big lever on the chaos meter, basically.
Right. Oh,
That
right,
they need
right.
to appease you to some degree, otherwise you can just always push the kingdom towards chaos.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I will say that 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 is how I see the scene playing out as it currently stands, and that I think the people, the dwarves, will are not going to be nearly as ready to reject the kobolds as Gildan has demanded, and the dwarves are uneasy about like about I guess while they were happy that you were still alive, the fact that you're alive in this form is kind of like the ramifications of that and the creepiness of that all is like sinking into the dwarves right now. So I don't know how far I'm at liberty to be able to extend that.
So you get to first either erase or add a crisis box for being a touchstone.
Right.
And then you get to just, if you want, you can just you can just mark crisis again, because we certainly didn't get as closer to resolving the crossroads.
Yeah, that's what I was playing on. I just want to make sure I fully understood like
Yeah, so
how
you
I
can
play
mark
this out.
crisis. You can mark crisis twice
Okay.
if you wanted.
But I probably shouldn't say, yeah, the people turn against you, because that's something that would, like, I can't. I mean, I could say the people aren't happy with you, but to say they act on it is probably something that would happen during the crisis resolution.
If you're saying they act on it,
Mhm.
then you're presumably like trying an overthrow.
Right, because that's a power move.
Yeah. You could also do it to try to challenge something I did, like maybe you challenge what I do by talking about how the people array in protest, maybe.
Mhm.
But short of overthrowing me, it's something I can always say no to.
Right. I'm just trying to think if that's something I want to do at this point. Eesh.
You can also always challenge things as an individual character as well. Like in some of the examples from the book, they talk about characters like sneaking into the shields facility of a sci-fi planet to turn off the shields and let in the refugees, or things like that. So you can always like also narrate your character individually doing things to challenge something.
Yeah. But I feel like right now I don't feel like the people would on Hax's here say, yeah, I don't think I'm ready to overthrow, because it feels like it's too soon for that. I think that's something that I'll probably just like wait for an actual crisis event to happen for that actually plays out. Because I don't think people, yeah, even though I'm the touchstone, it doesn't, like, narratively, it doesn't make sense for Hax to be able to persuade everyone just like that. So yeah, I think I'll leave that as is, and just stick to any reaction scenes we have, and otherwise get to the box checking. So barring any other reaction scenes, I guess you get a reaction.
Okay. Now, yeah, I was gonna say, I think that we see a scene of some of the wartime reforms that King Gildan is enacting, and we sort of have a stock set up for profiteers and gossipers, and those who are distracting the hold from the wartime economy.
Okay. And then we'll move on to And I think I'm just going to go ahead and double down on the crisis situation here. And that should be my turn. And we move back to Revik.
Okay. How about this? Kind of move things forward a little bit. A scene at the Hammergate, and I think Revik is there. I imagine at the Hammergate, like there's like a kind of watchtower structure by that entrance gate, right, where people would be kind of looking out into the distance. And Revik is in that kind of watchtower by the Hammergate. I mean, I think you obviously would have other dwarves that would be there, and maybe some of these. So Stephen, these kind of undead spirits. I mean, what are they? They're like skeletons. Is that what the
Yeah, I'll go if they take the appearance of skeletal dwarves.
Okay. So I imagine that there's like maybe a combination of skeletal dwarves and other dwarves there. But what I want to say is that Revik, who has pretty sharp eyes, has spotted in the distance what looks like a kind of scout party of warm blood kobolds approaching. They're trying to be secretive, but I have spotted them, and I think I scurry down the tower and call for well, I say I need to speak to Gildan. I need to speak to Gildan.
So is the scene actually like? So where is the scene actually taking place then?
Well, I guess maybe if Gildan would come to the gate, right, we could do it at the gate. Like after I've spotted something, I haven't really announced it quite yet to everybody, but then Gildan would kind of come up, has been kind of called there because Revik's clearly is agitated and sees something has seen something vital.
Right. Okay.
Some vital news.
I just kind of wanted to clarify. So the situation is we've seen scouts and we are at the gate.
Yeah.
Are there any other characters you want to be present? Because you can just introduce new characters if you want. You don't have to like pick player characters.
I don't think it needs to be specific,
Okay.
but I would say that there are other dwarves that are around here that would be listening to this exchange. I mean, just kind of other kind of dwarves that would be the kind of guard at the gate that would be there. And I think when Gildan gets there, Revik would say, Gildan, you promised action. You promised taking some type of decisive fight to the Wormbloods, but now I have just seen a small contingent of Wormblood scouts scurrying about. It looks like the fight is coming to you.
I pat you on. I kind of put my hand on your shoulder. You are wrong, Revik. It is coming to you. And I kind of shout out to the rest of the wall, I give you your new field commander. Revik, you will take a contingent of men to see to these scouts.
Well,
I trust you with this, Revik.
Gildan, you Revik is kind of obviously flabbergasted and is like, Gildan, I think you might want to reevaluate that. Certainly the other dwarves listening to you right now can see that you are the leader. You are the one who has promised to lead the dwarves to some type of glorious victory, and now you're going to shirk your responsibility?
I look at you and say, it's just the empty eye sockets of the skull peering at you. I will tell you what I see, Revik. I see a dwarf whose cowardice had us cowering in these halls. I see a dwarf who needs to be proven worthy of remaining among us. I see a dwarf who will lead forth a force to meet these scouts. Or I see yet another dead dwarf before me.
And Revik says, Gildan, I will accept this charge, since obviously neither you nor perhaps any of your contingent is able to take on these kobolds who are now encroaching on us. I will do that. But I think the time is coming for you not to simply bluster and talk and make great promises. I think the time is coming when the dwarves need to see you acting and not simply spouting fire as you so often do. And I think with that, Revik will kind of turn around and call some of the dwarf forces together and says, let us arm ourselves. There is some fighting to be done.
Okay.
And yeah, so that would be good. And clearly, Revik is, realizes the importance of dealing with the kobolds, and he certainly has a bone to pick with with Gildan, but he also kind of is gonna be willing to kind of go out there to deal with the scout force of the Wormbloods.
All right. Reaction scenes. Do we have a Gildan reaction?
No, I think I'm good for now. I think I had enough screen time in that scene to do what I wanted.
Mm-hmm. I think in the meantime, Hax is definitely he's now actively. We just see a scene of him actively persuading the dwarves, especially like if there are any like clerics or religious leaders, just trying to like almost like ask them about the well, let's see. Hax, not that Hax is an expert in dwarven faith or whatever, but he's definitely persuading the dwarves of Dwarf Mountain of the Glimmerhold that that something's not right with Gildan, and that he in fact is poisoned to the core with the same evil that powers the dragon. And that's the only reason why he's still here. So I think he's basically just persuading the people that that you're not to be trusted, that you're inherently, to use a word from modern events, complicit in the dragon's evil, and that's basically his reaction scene. And then we would go on to the box checking for you, Robbie. What do you think? How do you think that scene played out?
And I check one box, right, as the
Correct.
okay. I think we'll go with a crisis.
Oh, okay. All right. And now we move to what inevitably is going to be our I'm imagining, unless I don't see I guess barring any kind of time passes event, this may very well be the last scene, and it belongs to Stephen.
Yeah, and I think that now let's see, Revik, you are a perspective right now, right? Or are you a touchstone?
I'm the touchstone, or a touchstone.
Well, I know, but he can be either one of those. But
I got you.
You're muted if you're answering. Revik?
Yeah, I'm perspective.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, I think to kind of push things to a conclusion, yeah, I think that an emissary of the Wormblood King has arrived at the hall, and with an offer of peace for the mountain. That if we now this is just sort of what they're saying. It's in no way making actual predictions about the just to clarify here, that if we yeah, let's say with an offer of peace specifically for our keep, not for Revik's homeland, but for our keep. So I do want Revik to be in this scene. But Mike, I was wondering if you could play the emissary of the Wormblood King.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I can do that.
Cool. So I think that we are once again in the throne room, and and sort of the council is arrayed there with Revik among the counselors and myself at the throne, and you stand before us, and so tell us, servant of the Wormblood, what is it that you and your people offer the actually, what is the name of our nation? I forget.
I'm sorry.
I'm just forgetting the name of our hall.
Oh, oh, you mean if you're talking about the mountain, it's the Glimmerhorn.
Yeah, what is it that what terms do you offer the people of the Glimmerhorn?
I think we simply want to reunify our people. Our nation is grievously wounded with the how would he phrase it? Not exiles, with the not refugees. Shall we say the? Yeah, he'll just say that without the traitors, for they are even traitors though they may be, they are still they do still carry the blood of the dragon, and it must be reunited for us to do with as we will. Those are our terms. To simply rid you of what surely has been a complication within your great dwarven halls. That will be the offer of the of Toto the Grand. We'll say.
And I'm
sorry, Toto the Branded. I'm sorry, that's his name.
Yeah. I look over at you, Revik, and say, well, Revik, do you believe there to be any truth in their offer?
You would be the one to know whether there's any truth to this offer. I mean, you're the one who fought the Wormbloods all those years. I mean, you certainly have a much more thorough knowledge. Recalling back to that time when the Wormblood, along with the dragon, were basically ruling over Glimmerhorn. Did you trust the Wormblood then?
Gildan nods and ponders. And out of character, I just wanted to clarify that what I was, just because I get that in character why that happened, but out of character, I also was want to set up, give you an opportunity to make some predictions as the perspective.
Okay.
You're right. It was. You're right. I see now what I have to do. And I step over to the kobold and look down at him and say, I want you to take this back to your master. And I slit his throat. And I say to the guards, you can have that delivered to the Wormblood. You can have that delivered to our border.
Okay.
And I think when you do that, Revik says, Gildan, I had been losing my faith in you, but I'm impressed by that direction. I see that you do have true fight in you. I was thinking that you might have been on the verge of accepting his offer, which would have been terrible for the Glimmerhorn. And I think this will certainly give the Wormbloods much to think about.
Yes. Next time you wish to offer advice, you can do it before I act. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to do in the scene. Like, I wanted to see if I could, if I wanted to set up an opportunity, like I said, to see if you wanted to give any thoughts as a perspective. But that's about all I wanted to do with the scene.
Yeah, you still have you still get a reaction scene to
Yeah.
to drop any final predictions.
Yes. So do you want to go to me for the reaction scene? Is that
Sure.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind going first.
I think that Revik, after that, I mean, he is definitely thinking this is now going to be all out war with the Wormbloods, and right that this in fact is going to be a time where the dwarves are finally going to kind of get together and maybe be a little bit desperate, but that this is going to be like a final kind of conflict with the Wormbloods now, who are clearly not going to be particularly happy with that response.
Okay, so do you have any predictions to make?
Yeah, I think I should make a prediction here. So let me go here. It's so hard. Let's see. So we're still going back to this crossroad. Do we save Revik's homeland from the Wormblood King? I guess this would be. I guess my prediction is. I'm going to say if we say yes to this, the dwarves, both living and dead, will unify. And I'm wondering, like, how
I mean, is this kind of you like idly in your like office or den or whatever, wherever you think, like imagining the possibilities of this new military like alliance between your old people and your new?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that and I think when Gildan kind of took control and Revik was initially kind of unsure of exactly what he thought about, right, these kind of skeletal dwarves rising up. I think at this point he's kind of thinking that, yeah, if this kind of military action works, that maybe, yeah, that this would actually kind of bring the living and the dead, and any of those kind of internal squabbles that in the past, and that kind of uncertainty would kind of get dispelled, and we would all be kind of unified together.
Just become one big dwarven melting pot. Dwarves, undead, kobolds, all living together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, you never define whether the dwarves who are alive will remain alive. Just that they'll be reunited with the dead dwarves somehow.
Well, and we certainly also have on the table there that there may be some catastrophic loss.
Oh, perhaps, yes.
Yeah.
All right. I will decline a reaction scene for now. I think I'm just ready to get to the end game, and
Okay.
yeah, let's see what
I'm
happens.
going to check off Crossroads.
Okay. So now we go into crossroad resolution mode.
So yes, this is going to be the end of the game because of course this is our last session.
Yep. So we'll read aloud the crossroads, and just as a reminder, let's go over the crossroad. The crossroad is: do we save Revik's homeland from the Wormblood King? If yes, here are the predictions. These three predictions are my predictions: a catastrophic loss of dwarves at Wormblood Canyon. Dark forces from the deep under the Glimmerhorn will run rampant. And the Orb of Fire saying will prevent a catastrophic loss of Wormblood Canyon. And then Rivik has a prediction: the dwarves, both living and dead, will unify. Those are the yes predictions. If no, Rivik has predicted that Dwarf Mountain can seize control over the Wormblood Citadel. So those are our predictions. And now we have one power player, that being Gildan. And I guess you get to decide on yes or no for the crossroad.
Yes.
Okay.
Is what I'm deciding.
And we get to challenge one thing during the crossroad resolution, but we only get one chance to challenge something. Is that correct? Am I remembering that correctly?
Maybe that might be the case. I forgot.
I think that's yeah. Yeah, let me just confirm that. If you don't like how a crossroad, you can do something about it. You can interrupt the normal steps of the crossroad to challenge something. You can interrupt the resolution to challenge something, change a roll, or overthrow.
Oh yeah, only gets to interrupt once. Okay.
Okay. All right. So you're saying yes, we are gonna save Revik's homeland from the Wormblood King.
Yep.
Okay. Next is we skipped the orders scene. That's one of the things that was removed, right? The orders step.
Yeah, orders are just no longer part of the game.
Yeah. So now we move to step 5, predictions. All right. So dealing with the yes predictions, I guess all the hacks ones go away since I'm no they provisionally
now,
go away.
one by one, you our current perspective we'll go through them one by one, and you can decide which of those you actually want to keep. Do we suffer from catastrophic loss of dwarfs at Wormblood at our battle at Wormblood Canyon?
And is this me, since I'm the perspective? Is this?
Yep, you're the only perspective, so you get to adopt any of these old ones from hacks and decide if they come true or not, because you're the only one left to decide all this stuff.
Well, the first one and the third one are clearly at odds with each other, so
Yep.
they can't both be.
One of them has to go down at least.
I think what I want to say is the first one does not occur, but the second, third, and fourth one do.
Well, we no longer have the Orb of Far Seeing, though. So we definitely...
Well, because
that's not to say that we can't get it back at some point.
Right. I mean, the Orb of Far Seeing has been incorporated into the dragon, or like wherever those bones went, right?
All we've established is that they're both missing.
Yeah, they're missing. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, okay.
So yeah, I guess we could keep that still a mystery, but yeah, I mean, I think definitely the second and the fourth one will say come true, that we have the dark forces, and I'm kind of, what I'm imagining is that the dark forces are partly what kind of allow us to help us to save the homeland.
So you're claiming 2 and 4 is coming?
Yes.
Coming true?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And we'll cross that one out as well. The no stipulation. All right.
Well, yeah.
So we have, dark forces from deep under the Glimmerhorn will run rampant, and the dwarves, both living and dead, will reunite. Or will unify, I should say. And barring any challenges to that, we'll move on to my step, the popular reaction. So let's see what's happened. So we are saving Revik's homeland from the Wormblood King. Dark forces from deep are going to run rampant, and the dwarves, both living and dead, will unify. So basically, I decide whether.
So first, you say what your character thinks about what has happened. Say where you are and what you think. This shows us how what the people of the kingdom feel.
So I think just the fact that these dark forces have now been fully unleashed, I think especially given what Hax has already spread about Gildan, I think people are going to blame Gildan for those forces, and to the point where even presumably defeating the kobolds of the Wormblood King won't matter.
Oh, do we see you with the other kobolds like fighting back the dark forces under the earth? Because we did establish that your kobolds are down there now.
Yes,
like you're not holding them back, but like you're like deeply embattled there now.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's very reason. Yeah, that totally makes sense. That they've taken the vanguard. They've taken upon themselves the role of the vanguard in protecting Dwarf Mountain, which is sad for the kobolds, because it looks like kobolds everywhere are getting killed. But anyway, I think he definitely blames Gildan for all this happening. And I think that will that sentiment also propagates throughout, because people realize just how unstable the mountain is now because of all this crazy energy that's been going on, and that happened to kick into high gear once Gildan made his grand reappearance. If I think the situation is bad for the kingdom, I think dark forces from the deep are kind of bad. I'm going to go ahead and, just for funsies, check off that crisis box, kicking us into crisis mode. And am I correct in understanding that we resolve the crisis and then go back to resolving the crossroad?
Well, really, the other stuff is mostly like there's just no. Here we go. Under check time passes, if all the boxes on either we just finished, because really the only thing left is reflection. Like, do we think of any of our characters have changed as a result of how the crossroad played out?
Yeah, and that step is it depends on reflecting on the wishes and fears, which we don't have anyway.
Well, yeah, but even without that,
you'd
still you'd still want to think about, like, has my character's attitude changed?
Mm-hmm. So maybe why don't we just deal with the crisis, and then we'll just reflect on everything that's happened. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Second crisis of the game.
If both are full, so we also check time passes, and we resolve crisis first, and then time passes.
Okay.
Assuming we make it past the crisis.
Right. End game, definitely. What's the crisis? I guess the dark forces of the Glimmerhorn are now like running rampant. It's just full on magical chaos time. Not to mention the undead dragon running around or flying around. What do we see? Okay, each player paints a picture of the crisis by describing what the character sees happening around them. Say where you are and then say what you see. Don't have your character take action yet. Who would like to go first?
Yeah, I think that we see Gildan in the throne room as the spirits of the ancestors moan wildly, and we see him have a vision of a mountain crafted to contain the first evil in the world, and now it is out.
The first. Oh, okay. So, crisis. Gildan, wailing ghost, dwarf ghosts.
No, the ancestors are like the people that built the hall that the dwarves came to live in. We established.
So wailing ancestors.
Like ancestors are kind of quote unquote. They're like the first people that lived in the halls before the dwarves.
Oh, that's right. We didn't build these halls. That's right. We'll just call them wailing creators. Oh yeah. And then the first evil is unleashed. Do you have do you care to describe that first evil, or you just want to leave it nebulous?
I mean, I always just want to make it the elves, but
well, we can leave that be for now. Robbie, would you like to set the scene for what Revik is seeing in the crisis, or would you like me to go next?
I think what you see with Revik, or what Revik sees, is Revik is preparing for battle, but this time is in a squad that has some of those skeletons, you know, in the squad, and yeah, I guess Revik a little intrigued to see what is going to go down on the battlefield, fighting next to these dwarven skeletons.
And you're preparing for battle with the Wormblood kobolds. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. And then as for Hax, he'll be at the Black Gate. And yeah, let's do this. So from the depths, you see the undead dragon, surely enough, flying out from the depths with the orb of far-seeing in its eye socket, and riding that undead dragon is our good friend Fermuli. He's back, and that is what Hex sees. Now, so that's the what do you see phase. Next, the what do you do phase. Each player describes what their character does or doesn't do in the crisis. You can try to save or destroy the kingdom, or save your own skin and escape. Say where you are and what you do. So yeah, if the kingdom falls and you're still in the kingdom, you fall with it. So this is where you decide whether you want to I guess stick it through or save your skin. So who would like to start that off?
yeah, and I guess we sort of see, because sort of like there's been all this magic that's been borrowed from the wards on the mountain. I think we see Gildun like throwing all his weight of his mystical of his own soul into the wards. And there's a kind of great burning away, like a kind of guttering up as fire lights on kindling. And I think even like many of like the undead dwarves that are around the place, they light up as well. But he's just burning through the souls of dead dwarfdom and his own to fuel to try to pour magic into back into the wards.
And the wards, I take it, are what contains the magic within the mountain?
Yeah, something like that. Because we kind of got into that there was kind of that Louise's character, his she tapped into like that ward in the first place to do her big curse.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that in the end we sort of are left in a darkened room, and as the fire dies away, Gildun is gone.
So all are gone. All right. What was I going to say? Oh yes, Revik, would you like to go? Shall Revik go next, or shall Hax go next?
I think with Revik, I guess maybe you have a scene after some type of skirmish with Revik kind of wounded, and maybe some type of big gash in Revik's leg that has been sustained, and he's kind of getting patched up. She's getting patched up, and she's also looking at the kind of skeletal dwarves, and some of them are also kind of in bad shape, and Revik is kind of coming, is really definitely warming up to this idea that maybe there's a possibility that that the skeletal dwarves and the living, maybe there is this will in fact kind of work out with those two, the undead and the living.
Unity. All right, and then Hax. Basically, you see the dragon. Basically the undead dragon is wreaking havoc, basically knocking down, knocking down portions of the wall. Vermuli is basically just the just shouting bloody murder at the kobolds, saying that you'll not shame us any longer. He's saying, because he's still all hung up about how they have overshadowed the dwarves and their crafting ability. And Hax is basically just like bravely leading his people to command it. They're basically like trying to like anytime the dragon strikes at the gates, there you see kobolds jumping on to basically just like try to hack at the bones, and they're dying off like crazy, and that's basically they're going to be basically just trying to fight off the dragon and finally put it down once and for all. And that's what they're doing. So they're definitely standing. They're not trying to run away. And they're definitely doing their part to protect the mountain. And after that, we go to the outcome. So now we need to decide whether we think this kingdom should stand or fall. This is a decision we make as players, not as our characters. We do the thing where we hide our hands and vote simultaneously, thumbs up or thumbs down. or flat if you're neutral. So thumbs up, thumbs down, or flat if you could go either way, I guess, if you're neutral. No one tried to escape, so we don't have to worry about that. We add basically, it's +1 for each thumbs up, -1 for each thumbs down. And if the result's positive, the kingdom survives. If the result's negative, the kingdom is destroyed. If the result's 0, the crisis comes down for now, but it's not really resolved. It could still flare back up, but I've got my vote ready. Does everyone we were going to do the thing where we type
the message,
our number. Yeah. So type on 3, we'll type our vote. Type in 1 if you're thumbs up. Type in 0 if you're neutral. Type in -1 if you're thumbs down. Are we ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. We had someone trying to save us. Unfortunately, we're still at a -1. Oh no, we're at a -1, which means the outcome is not good for Dwarf Mountain. It is negative, and we describe the outcome of the crisis together based on what we've already seen. If the kingdom was destroyed, decide if something new might rise in its place, or if only a smoking crater remains. If the kingdom is destroyed, each player may briefly describe what happens to the character. Remember, if you didn't escape, your fate's tied to the kingdom. So, how do we think? How do we see this playing out? How do we see the destruction of the kingdom playing out? We have a first evil being unleashed in the throne room. Gildan and all the ghost dwarves have apparently been extinguished in an attempt to power the wards to contain the evil power of the mountain. Revik, you're fighting it out with against the Wormblood King, and starting to think of a possible future in which the ways in which the dead and the living can live together, unified. And the kobolds were fighting off the undead dragon and Vermuli at the Black Gate. So I feel like that sacrifice that Gildan did make, and he did go down fighting for the kingdom. Let's give him credit. I think whatever happens to the Dwarven kingdom, I feel like the energy is contained. So at least addressing the question of whether there's still potential for a new kingdom to arise, I at least would say sure, there's still potential. Does anyone have any other thoughts about how this all plays out?
I mean, does the kingdom just become like a fortress of the dead?
Well, we do know that the dwarves, both living and dead, will unify.
Yeah, and I mean, your fate is tied to the kingdom, Robbie, since you didn't flee.
You didn't.
Like, as you're thinking about this, like, does one of the undead just like slit your throat, and you know that you will be united with the keep?
Yeah, united, but in a way that I didn't quite imagine.
Right.
That's not really what my vision of this was obviously a little dim and inaccurate, but yes. Yeah, I mean, I could see myself, kind of rising as one of the, like as like I'm wounded, that one of the undead, and I have those like bright thoughts in my mind, but one of the skeletal dwarves does me in, and then the next thing, right, I'm kind of rising up to join them.
And did would the skeletal dwarves have done that? I assume it wasn't a malicious, maybe not necessarily a malicious thing, but strictly to unify, like just bring the kingdom together. Is that?
I mean,
kind of like?
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, is that? I was just trying to get a sense of what. I assume this wasn't like some mindless zombie attack thing. It was more like a deliberate thing to unify the people.
Yeah, I'm wondering if. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, but both that as well as seeing that as a way I mean, maybe I was in really bad shape, and they saw this as a way to kind of like re-empower me in a strange way, right?
Now we've also got we've got wailing the wailing spirits of the beings that created that first dug within Dwarf Mountain, and the first evil unleashed in the throne room, and we've also got the undead dragon and Fermuli. Do we feel like first of all, do the kobolds defeat the undead dragon, or does the undead dragon get revenge? I feel like that the dragon should probably get revenge on the kobolds for poisoning him.
Yeah. I don't know. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Or do we feel like well, I mean, they have to. I feel they have to get killed somehow because they can't survive. I feel like they can't survive this because they are part of the kingdom. But perhaps they
not
go down.
Every single person in the kingdom needs to die. Our main characters have to fall with the kingdom,
Okay.
but other people can like be scattered as refugees and things like that.
Oh, okay. I see. That's true. Yeah. It's just the players. This is our characters that are tied to the fate of the kingdom. Well, in that case, I definitely feel like I would like to say that maybe Hax goes down fighting for Muli, and maybe figures out some way to slay. Oh, maybe he I'm just trying to figure out how could Hax die heroically and taking out the dragon? Maybe something to do with the orb of Farsing. Did they perhaps? I don't know if they would have had enough time to craft some super special weapon. I feel like if they had any chance of victory, we should tie it to their ability to create weapons, since that was such a big deal in the first Crossroad. Perhaps they took the irradiated stone and crafted a dragon weapon out of it.
Here's a pitch. Does Bermuli stab you, and then Hax just like takes it out and says, "You dwarves always were shitty craftsmen," and blows on it and stabs it back into him?
With his own. Oh, right. Yeah, maybe something. Yeah, something like that could definitely go. Yeah, I feel like he does go down with like one final insult at Vermillion because he deserves it. But perhaps we could say he crafted some kind of like obsidian weapon out of the irradiated stone of the mountain, something that could maybe plunges it into the orb of far seeing, and that's what create some kind of reaction that also takes out the dragon, but also Hax dies in the process, and I'm sure plenty of the free scales have died as well, but there may be enough for potential rebuilding. But definitely so I think that I kind of see how that would that phase of the crisis plays out. What do you think about what went down to the throne room with this first evil?
And one thing to kind of note, just for like future playing of this, falling doesn't it doesn't actually say we die. It's just that our fate is tied to the kingdom.
Okay.
So for other places, like if this was a hospital drama, and the hospital fell, like all the doctors working there wouldn't all die simultaneously. Sure. Like maybe they get disgraced or something like that, and they're no longer able, and they lose their licenses or things like that.
That makes sense. So we need to figure out what we need to figure out what happens with all the dwarves who weren't on the battlefield. That's I
mean, do many of them sort of end up getting dispersed as refugees among Revik's people?
Yeah, like the mountain's clearly poisoned. They know they can't. This is no place of refuge anymore, so they have to hightail it out, and
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe they find themselves as refugees in Revik's homeland, in the Rockvale. Robbie, how do you feel about that?
Yeah,
Or,
I think that's right, but I think that
or do they all get killed by the remaining? Do the skeletal dwarves just come in and just start killing everyone in order to? Because they oh, you know what, they do have to be, the dead and the living do have to be unified.
right.
So I feel like that would preclude some kind of refugee situation. I kind of feel like it is a matter of the skeleton dwarves coming in and just finishing the job, as it were.
Well, like the dead and the living were unified, and now we're moving on to the crisis. In some sense.
Okay. So they were unified. So it doesn't mean, okay, I see what you're saying. As long as you fill the prophecy, it doesn't mean that has to stay static.
Yeah, like that was a perspective prediction. It wasn't like a monkey's paw prophecy.
I gotcha. Okay, well that leaves our options open then.
Yeah, and I can see refugees. I think I imagine that Rockvale is in pretty bad shape, though. I mean,
Sure.
right? Because my idea with like the Wormbloods kind of showing up at Glimmerhorn was that they probably had been, the Wormbloods had been somewhat triumphant at Rockvale, and so yeah, you can find some scattered dwarves around there, but it's quite scattered and very weak, right? There's not kind of like unified kingdom over there anymore. It's kind of.
I'm not saying it's a good life. I'm saying just that they're
yes.
Sure. Yeah. That feels good. And then now there's like a first evil prevail. Is the first evil kind of presiding over the dwarf ghosts that still remain in the Glimmerhorn?
I don't know. Like, maybe do you want to say the opposite, that the dwarf ghosts are now just kind of like in the remnants of the kingdom? It's now like, rather than a fortress being manned to keep the rest of the world out, the ghosts are now manning it to keep this last evil contained within the mountain.
I like that. Yeah, I feel like that's a. Yeah, I like that ending. How about you, Robbie?
Yeah, no, I think it a kind of glorious fall.
Yeah, I think that's a very suiting ending to the kingdom of the Glimmerhorn of Dirkandor of Dwarf Mountain, and I believe that. That's for. Well, I don't know who's still alive to reflect at this point. We can reflect as players, and Revik's still around as a ghost, probably leading the dwarf ghosts and containing the first evil.
No, reflect is just in Crossroad, because that's for like if you're continuing play.
Gotcha. Well, we are not, because we've wrapped this up with minutes to spare, literally. I really enjoyed this. I thought this was a lot of fun. I'm glad that we came to a pretty good, a pretty clear cut resolution for all the characters and the situations we've crafted up in here. How do you all feel about how it wrapped up, and or even how it's gone overall? Over the 4 sessions.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were a lot of interesting plot threads that kind of, like, even though at a certain point, like in the early session, it seemed like it was going to end up being a very, like, once the fact that like the first crossroad was like dwarves and kobold, like the dwarf kobold, like political thing, like there was a certain kind of tension that it might end up going very zany. But instead, it kind of felt like everything sort of wrapped back in and built, and like we managed to kind of keep it as kind of a cohesive, rather than just kind of branching off into all these very like disparate directions.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like there was definitely I got the same sense that there are so many plot threads, and it could have like spun off in crazy directions. But fortunately, I feel like especially in this final session, we touched on a lot of it and kept it all together. So that was fortunate. I know I was definitely glad to have your experience with the game system to lean on, Steven. So that was a big help. Robbie, I think I.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I like that in the last session that there were also some of the other threads that had been introduced earlier that were getting kind of tied together. I thought that was very, very satisfying. I mean, as a game, it definitely, I think where it really started to click for me was, I mean, it's a game where definitely the challenges are important, the overthrows are important, right? Having, characters that are switching their roles, right? I mean, I thought, that's, a kind of key dynamic of the game, and I know in the first session I wasn't really kind of sure about how the kind of challenge, and I think Louise had some kind of questions about that, but I think once you kind of get some understanding of those kinds of transformation dynamics and how the roles are shifting around, and you've got those kind of challenges and overthrows, becomes very interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to make sure you have characters that are that will have clear lines of conflict with each other from the beginning. I think that's one of the vital things you need to do to make this kind of game succeed. I feel like I was thinking about this earlier today, and I feel like what's important to do for this game in the Kingdom game is to make sure you keep world building in every scene, because if you don't, the less defined the world is, the harder it is to come up with motivations and figure out, well, what was my character doing in this situation? And I think the more detail you can add to the world to the world building in each scene, I think that you come up, it generates more ideas, and people can bounce off their own new ideas off that, and that's something that I think would be important to focus on if in any future Kingdom game. And I tried this game again. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and kind of something, because this is really the first chance I've had to play Kingdom for a kind of lengthy period. Something I would probably note about the way that setting up scenes, like I feel like a good kind of thing that it gets at a little bit in the book, but that rather than kind of setting, like framing a scene as like we need to talk about this subject, like I feel like it pushes the game more if you actually kind of frame like Lord so-and-so has come to make this demand on the subject, because it then sets up a much more like scene where people actually have to respond, as opposed to kind of like politely disagreeing with each other. Because it's like really the system like becomes much more fun when you're like actually responding to challenges and overthrows, rather than kind of like having these polite negotiations about like how we're going to resolve these problems.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that would be important to address even when you're creating characters, to make sure you make big personalities and who aren't afraid of getting other people's faces, and maybe even stretch your own boundaries a little bit as a player. But because I think especially in a game like Kingdom, where we're generating the conflict, it's not a game master presenting situations to us, conflicts to us. We're generating the conflicts ourselves. It's important to make sure we're playing characters that are like big, forceful, have big, forceful existences to get those exciting confrontations starting right out the gate. So that's definitely good advice as well to keep in mind. Barring anything else, I really appreciated being able to play this game. This is my first time playing the game, and I definitely want to try more. There's a lot of scenarios in the Kingdom book, So there's plenty of more potential for more sessions. I'm sure I'd run this again at some point. I want to thank you all, Robbie and Steven, for playing, and I'm also grateful for Luis, who was a big part of this game, and except for the session, unfortunately. I thought he brought a lot of heart and a lot of enthusiasm to the game, and Richard, who joined us for the last session. He gave us a nice there was a nice curveball coming into the it's no easy thing to come into the third session of a four game session series, but he did it and did it well. So
and we're sorry that. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, that's all I got.
Yep, and we're sorry that the kobold dwarf political marriage never happened, Louise.
Yeah,
we'll save that for
we couldn't manage it in this last session.
We'll save that for another.
Oh, we could have had a kobold dwarf ghost political marriage.
Hey, it's all good in the in the afterlife. That's what I always say. Well, anyway, this has been Kingdom Dwarf Mountain. On behalf of Robbie and Steven and Louise and Richard, this is Michael. Thank you for watching, and thanking the Gauntlet game for making this up, bringing us all together for the Gauntlet community. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you all next time. And